Good morning, my beautiful humans. Today, I have a very special project that has been a super long time coming for you. Today, we are going to work on my Outlander cosplay jacket based on the patterns from American Duchess, which I'll throw a picture of up over here. Before I get too far into things though, if you're new to the channel, my name is Maridith, and I adore historical costuming and history and crafting, and I'm really excited to have you along on this journey with me. Now, I've never really done outerwear for the 18th century, which was a big part of why I wanted a pre-made pattern. What I've found in the past works really well for me is using a pattern that, well, maybe not 100% there, is kind of close, helps me to develop an understanding for the shapes and some of the techniques. It gives me a starting place. And that's what I used the American Duchess pattern for. Does it have its quirks? Probably. Do they also give you a giant PDF you can download full of hacks on ways to tweak and adjust it? Yes, they do. So I'll put links to not only the pattern from their website, but as any of the hacks and other things that I've kind of read through and referenced while I was trying to decide how I was going to construct my jacket. And the reason it's taken me so long to release this was I kept hoping I could release it in conjunction with the next season of Outlander that's coming out. Apparently, it's been delayed for a while. It's been delayed a while. And let's face it, I would rather all of the actors, the crew, production team be safe than pout about it being late. Why don't we get stitching on some things? Grab your cuppa. I'm drinking oolong in honor of trying to read the tea leaves from the story and from the TV series. Maybe grab a bannock too if you're so inclined. And let's get to sewing, huh? I am definitely a paper pattern cutter, as we've discussed during the CosTube 21 questions for 2021 video before on this channel. Especially when it's a pattern like this, which I can still get in print. I'm going to cut them out just so that I can see kind of what I'm working with a little bit easier. At some point I might start taking some measures to try and preserve this pattern, depending on how much I like it in the long run. But one of the things that took the longest about this particular pattern was trying to fit it into the odd shapes I had left on this single piece of wool. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far and my running commentary, please do click that like button so that the video can get out to more folks. And consider subscribing so that you can see all the steps I go through on this cosplay. And with that, I have everything laid out. It's a freaking miracle, because that was a bit of a challenge, I'm sure you can tell. I'm going to cut out right along those pattern lines. I didn't want to add any extra easing or anything else. This pattern is basically a glorified mock-up before I start making an English or Italian gown kind of inspired by the pattern. And we're just going to see how much easing there is. I know I'm kind of playing it fast and furious without doing mock-ups on this one, but the measurements that I have are all within the bounds on the commercial pattern for the size 22. So I decided, given that it's going to be out of a bunch of scrap fabric, might as well give it a go. I decided to line everything in sort of a medium to heavy weight linen, which was also a scrap like everything else. But the tricky part about that was when I got down to my second sleeve, I didn't have a lot of great options. So I ended up just going through and piecing the fabric together. That way I could cut things out a little bit easier for myself. One of the things that I wish more historical costumers, so as theatrical people in general, would embrace more when it comes to doing their projects is that sometimes we need to piece something. You can be strategic with where and why, but you don't need to have a ton of waste, and that's really the goal of this project. Was let's make a fun cosplay and not worry about having a bunch of waste hanging out, and maybe use up some waste. In historical time periods, they didn't have extra fabric to just lay around, so they would have pieced things probably even heavier than I have done here, especially since I've only got one tiny seam inside a lining on one sleeve. I would be really, really lucky to be able to get away with that little piecing, given sort of the background and everything that you get from the stories for the clothes that Claire might have been wearing at this particular junction. So don't forget, piecing is completely okay. I'd rather you piece something than not have you out doing costuming fun. After I was done cutting everything out, I realized, I didn't do an actual mock-up. I should at least try and fit my lining a little bit to me before I sew the whole garment together. It's the period practice they would have done, fit the lining, sew the outer garment on top of it, that sort of a situation. I went and I grabbed some late 16th, early 17th century stays that I've made, because the shape was just close enough for what I was going to go for. And I also couldn't find my 18th century stays to fit this. But it kind of gave me the look I was going for, and has inspired me to try and either find my stays or make some new ones that would be a little bit more appropriate for mid to early 18th century. Overall, the shoulder fit was a little bit wide on me when I was fitting things, and there was a little bit of bagging under the arm that I wanted to try and adjust out. But this is why trying to fit things is so important, because ideally your lining should be smooth over this set of stays. After doing some fitting, let's start pinning everything together. This is actually why you have those little triangle balance marks on a commercial pattern. It gives you points where you can line up your different pieces of fabric and be able to sew them together without fighting to try and figure out where things need to be eased, where they need to be stretched, that sort of situation. Off camera, what you didn't see was I went and stitched up the side seams for all of the seams on the garment on my sewing machine. And after that, I came back and I started stitching the lining and the outer fabric together. And that was something I decided to do by hand because I was tired of sitting at my sewing machine for the most part and wanted a hand project that I could just sit down and sew kind of while watching season 1, getting some inspiration and getting in the mood for this cosplay. I also really wanted to get my sleeves set in correctly and try the specialized set in your sleeves technique that I keep seeing on the American Duchess YouTube channel and was reading about in some of the books and the hacks for the pattern, which meant I needed to finish off my sleeve a bit and get everything stitched together properly. These sleeves do come back to be the bane of my existence, but you'll see that here in the video in just a little bit. And wouldn't you know it, I am so confident about my fit on these sleeves that I decided I was going to sew the lining shut too. Please learn from my mistakes. Try your things on before you get all of the finishing seams sewn in. It was really demoralizing. And here we go with experiments of Meredith trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with her jacket. I mean, let's start with the fact that I put the sleeves on the wrong sides of the jacket. So the little cup that creates a spot for your elbow to go when you bend your arm is on the inside of my elbow, not the outside. And the pleats weren't in there in a really great way. So I'm about to take all of that apart. Pray for me. And now that we're out of the monochromatic sad land of trying to rip things apart, let's get our sleeves set in correctly this time. I am going to set them in using hand stitches because that was part of what made ripping them out the first time go so wrong. I'd stitched them in on the machine. I really found that I liked the control I had with setting my sleeves in by hand versus just trying to whip them out on a sewing machine. It makes this whole process go way faster and be a whole lot less stressful, believe it or not. And at least this time when I'm sewing my lining in, I know everything's correct. because I've tried it on. Don't sew your linings in before you know that. So, halfway through watching season 1 again and doing all of this hand sewing, I was staring at Claire's jacket and realized there's a peplum on a lot of her jackets that the Simplicity Outlander pattern just didn't have. Ironically, the one that McCall's has does have some sort of a little peplum jacket thing going on to it. But rather than cut this all out all over again, I'm going to take all of those little scraps that you saw that would have been left over when I cut out the main garment fabric pieces, and I'm going to make a little skirt. So this is a wedge that goes in the center back to try and flare that out a little bit over my butt. And I have two slightly curved rectangles that went along from the center back to the center front on each side. It was really easy. I leaned in on some of my more medieval sewing techniques to get this pattern going, but it was really effective, I think. It gives me that cute little peplum that I wanted, and theme of the video, we used up more of the scraps. The last, very last part of this garment was actually whipping out my eyelets. I decided to do a quick spiral lace with just really quick and dirty hand sewn eyelets, and it was really effective. And are you ready for a sneak peek at the reveal of this project? To wear this outside and get some lovely kind of test fit experience with it, I had to go up into our wonderful Colorado wilderness and walk around. So it was the only place cool enough this time of year to be able to wear a completely wool outfit like this and not die. I tried wearing it in town a little bit and I was just sweating way too much. But I'm gonna go with the overall fit is reasonably good. I was able to be klutzy and not cause any major problems or rips, but there's still a little issue with some of the pleating on the sleeves. I probably will go back and take a look at later. But if you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and subscribe for part 2, where we are going to go and make more of the cosplay that you've been seeing here. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.
So, from what that means for